Hey guys, here to bring you my analysis of the decks that I brought for my lineup for week 2 of Grandmasters. Let's dive right in. So in week 2, the format was last year's standing, which was different from the previous week, which was Conquest. Now this video is coming out a little bit late, so now we're already on the third week, but just for analysis purposes, we had last year's standing last week for week 2. And I ended up bringing Bomb Warrior, Spell Mage, Guardian Druid without Survival of the Fittest, and I believe it was Highlander Priest. Let me just double check. Yes, Highlander Priest. Now, last year's standing, obviously different format than Conquest. You have to kind of build a line a bit differently. You can't build a targeting strategy. You kind of have to go for a couple different ways. You need to have like a wide range of archetypes so that you can counter queue someone and make sure you get a win against the deck once one of yours gets knocked out. But you can also bring a sort of good decks lineup, which is just 4 decks that have good spreads that can kind of all sweep your opponent's decks. Basically decks that can win against anything. And that's kind of what I ended up bringing week 2. I don't feel like it was a great idea to bring super polarizing lineups because there were so many good decks that had good spreads. I felt it was better to just make sure I could bring stuff that I can play well and try to outplay my opponent instead of trying to win the first flip of winning the first queue. Because if you win the first queue matchup, it means like you're favored, you win, you're up 1-0, they counter 1-1, you counter 2-1, they counter 2-2, you counter 3-2. And it's reversed if they end up getting the first queue. And I think a lot of decks from other people's lineups are also going to just be good decks instead of just having a completely good spread. So I imagined that it would be better to bring just a good array of good decks. I expected Warrior and Priest in pretty much everybody's lineup, so there were some techs I included in most of my decks that I'll point out that will nod to those two. And most people's strategies revolved around either banning Warrior, Priest, because these are probably the 2 strongest decks in the meta, at least for that week. So yeah, let's hop right in. Spell Mage. Nothing too fancy here. I think this is actually a pretty standard list. There's no brain freezes. There's one devolving missiles. I feel like 2 is a little too slow and clunky, but honestly, it's fine either way. With the nod to, I was planning on banning a Priest as a heads up. So against Warrior, I felt like Conjurer's Calling is something I definitely need to have some extra gas. It's very powerful against Druid as well, which I expected a lot of. Yeah, so I think Conjurer's Call is a good call here. I think Jandis is a good call as well because of, again, leaving Warrior up, and against Druid, I felt like I needed some big stuff. I didn't really expect too much hyper aggro or anything, so I didn't really prep this deck for that. But even if there was aggro, you generally have enough ways to cheat out the game against aggro, and I don't think you need really any tech cards against that. There's arguments for running an Ooze or something, but I feel like that just makes the lineup weaker. 1 Firebrand, again, good anti-aggro tool, good in the mirror as well, but I wanted a bit more gas against some of the slower decks in the matchup, in the meta. Nothing too wacky here. Let's go on to Druid. Druid is quite a bit different than the previous week. This was after the Kael'thas nerf came out. So because of that, you'll see me only running 1 Survival of the Fittest. I think in the end, it might have been better to cut both because it's actually very hard to just spend 10 mana playing Survival of the Fittest, especially when I'm not running Anubis Defenders. So I think in retrospect, this might not have been the best thing to include. But the other 29 cards, I think I was pretty happy with. A little greedier with double ramp, just again, with Druid being popular and Warrior with Warrior being one of the decks that I'm leaving up. I feel like it's just important to get the ramp plan online and then just kind of overwhelm them. This does help against Druid, honestly. If you do ramp up more consistently than they do, have like a mediocre board with Mount Cellar or GA and then just Survival, you can win the game like that. 1 Broomstick to help against aggro. I did think there was going to be some Rogue this week, so I did want to have some sort of check for that, which is why you see Mount Cellars and Broomstick instead of the KT build or instead of a Mally build, since I'm banning Priest anyways. I don't think I need a Mally combo. I felt like this was probably good enough against Warrior and any other decks that pop up. This helps a bit against Mage too, which I thought was going to be relatively popular. Crystal Power for some extra healing and also some cheap cells for Exotic Mount Cellar, but overall quite different from what we've seen from week 1, where people were almost unanimously running KT double Survival. I can talk about the beast choices as well. 5 beasts. I've seen some people run 6 just to make it more consistent. I'm not sure about that. Honestly, a second broomstick could have been nice as well. Maybe if I was going to cut survival, just to make sure the drawing of the beast is a bit worse. But I like 2 threshers over 2 teacher's pets. The taunt is nice, but I feel like you're not... I feel like this was before aggressive rogue got really, really popular. There were some aggressive rogues in week 2, but not enough, I think, to preemptively put 2 like extra taunts and stuff. And at that point, you can like put Anubis out defender in as well. It just has like an extra tech card against aggro rogue. But I like the 2 threshers. Just consistently ramp, try to get the GA off, and then punch in with a thresher. I think was more important than having an extra taunt. And then obviously 2 Twilight Runners you'd want to include. Cool. Next up, I did not bring Big Warrior this week. I don't think it's as good in last year's standing. I think Bomb Warrior as a sweeper deck is much more likely to pan out. And again, this is where some of the tech cards start coming in. There were a couple in Druid, but the main ones you'll see here, and obviously in the Priest deck as well, which I expect to be banned a bit more. I was running a copy of Sticky Finger and Ooze. Leaving Warrior myself. If they leave Warrior, I want to make sure I'm favored in the mirror, because then I can sweep the rest of their lineup with this. So because of that, the double weapon tech is something I thought I would include. It's a little over the top. It also hits some of the weapon rogues, which there actually didn't end up being any of, which is really unfortunate. But I think having an extra 1 or 2 cards to take from the mirror was very important this week, when Warrior was going to be one of the super important decks to be able to get through. 1 Coerce. Druid was still going to be popular, so I felt like having a Coerce would be fine. Against the other decks, it's not super useful. It can be useful against Mage, can be useful against... I mean, in the mirror, it's really not. You have more than enough removal to deal with their big threats, so... Mainly for Druid. Some people are still running KT at this point, so just being able to deal with something if I don't have armors is kind of useful, or like Brawl Coerce to full clear board is still kind of nice. I don't think most people ended up bringing a Coerce. It might have been a split field between Coerce and no Coerce. I think I was the only one who ended up bringing double weapon tech and Warrior, which was a little over the top, but it actually paid off quite a bit. I ended up winning several mirrors because of that. So pretty happy about that. I ended up cutting 1 Raider as a result of putting the Sticky Finger, because I still wanted the Ant card to consistently get Skipper in case I ended up hitting the aggro matchups. Yeah. Otherwise, I think the rest of the deck is pretty straightforward. I was still running the Skipper Battle Rage package, well, just 1 Battle Rage and the Armor Smiths. It was still enough to ward off some aggro, can still help against Druid as well, just to either throw in some extra things for a brawl or clean up a board that's not really brawlable, and to get a bit more card draw going. I felt like as long as you do have the consistent card draw, you do end up winning the game, so I thought having 1 extra one was kind of nice. 1 extra form of card draw, obviously on top of the shield blocks and cutting classes. But yeah, this performed pretty well. I was pretty happy with it. And then finally Highlander Priest. Pretty much everybody bought Priest at this point. I think the most brought was Highlander Priest. There were a couple of Galacron Priests hanging out. I actually submitted the wrong list here, so that's kind of my bad. This isn't quite what I wanted to submit. It's pretty close though. Like the important things I wanted to include, of course, are the weapon techs, Ooze, and Sticky Finger. I didn't think I needed Harrison on top of that. I think 2 was going to be enough. I just wanted to make sure that if either my Priest or Warrior gets left up, and I wanted to make sure whichever one does get left up can beat the Warrior, since I'm planning on banning the Priest. Which is why you see very over-the-top tech cards in the 2 decks that I thought I needed to win that matchup with. Otherwise, I'm not going to go through each and every card here. There's 30. It's pretty straightforward. It's not too dissimilar from most lists on ladder you'll find right now. Maybe a couple cards off, a couple of extra cards for tempo, but otherwise fairly standard outside of the Sticky Finger. I think most people are running a News on ladder, perhaps, maybe not a Sticky Finger. But the reason Sticky Finger's in as well over something like Harrison is because stealing a weapon doesn't actually destroy it on your opponent's side of the board. So if they're running stuff like Horde Pillagers and you steal the Wrench Caliber, the Horde Pillager will not bring back the Wrench Caliber. It'll bring back any other weapons they may have equipped. So it can help quite a bit against that, to just remove it from the weapon pool. Yeah. Ended up top 8ing. Actually, I think I finished 4th or 3rd or something. Top 4 top 4 in week 2. So still pretty good. Got some good points out of that. Pretty much locked me up for Division A. But yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I didn't want to bring anything too wacky. I felt like the 4 decks were just solid enough that I didn't need to go far left field, and already having secured, I think, 6 points week 1 with my second place finish, I didn't need to take any super big risks and try to, get back in there. I thought just a consistent performance would kind of get me there. But I also thought this lineup was probably the better way to go. I missed the mark a little bit. There were some rogues I had trouble with that weren't actually running weapon techs, and the weapon techs were kind of useless against them, and I got beat up a little bit. But all in all, I was pretty happy with how the lineup performed. Deck codes below. Smash the subscribe button, follow my other socials, etc. And I'll catch you guys next time.